Well, that's what we're going to see him try to do again here. He's off to a beautiful start, 1-0 in this 11-round tournament. For Mr. Barnes' side, stock Esper, or what do you see there?
Yeah, pretty stock list. I mean, he does have a copy of Elixir in his deck, which you don't always see in every single Esper list. He does have two Aphoras. I'm not sure exactly the pronunciation.
Oh, so this is Aphora, God of the Polis?
Yeah.
This is the new god that draws cards. It's a little bit different. It's weird to kind of see it in this particular shell. But when you have Aetherling, you've got Elspeth that puts tokens into play, and he has an Obsidian as well. It can be a little mini card drawing engine, so I'm interested to see how that's going to work. You see, Hoogland started off here pretty well, playing an Overgrown Tomb untapped as his third land, and now there is Pulachronos, the World Eater. So he's accelerating into big threats now a lot of times. The Esper control deck doesn't really care about that, as, hey, Supreme Verdict, clean that up. Who cares what you're accelerating into? But we'll see what happens, because Jeff does have access to a card like Thoughtseize to be able to take care of the Supreme Verdict that could show up.
And like you said, Esper not necessarily the best deck for facilitating, a creature-oriented god, but it is very good at facilitating devotion.
Yes.
Detention spheres and Jaces kind of incidentally stay in play.
Yes.
So that gets lost in the shuffle with the gods a lot. You focus on the text boxes, but if you can get those things turned on, they're pretty much all good deals.
Ashiok Nightmare Weaver is going to come in here. 2 Heroes Downfall and an Aetherling are going to go bye-bye. You see Jeff immediately take the Aetherling saying, give me that thing. I'm going to put that into play later. Here's a Temple of Deceit. After that, going to take a look and put the top card, leave it on top, pass the turn back to Barnes. And now Jeff is doing what you want to do when you play against Esper. He's coming from 2 angles. He's got Planeswalkers, he's got creatures. As Barnes is going to play his land untapped, and he's going to come with a Jace Architect of Thought. Going to tick that down. So 3 cards here. You got a Jace, you got a Temple, and you've got an Island. But if you're Hoogland, you probably like the way things are going so far.
Yeah, like you said, you had multiple angles of attack right now. Jeff can just very easily take that Jace off the table, and Ashiok's actually pretty threatening against Esper decks. If the game goes long enough, it's a thing that matters. Every Planeswalker matters. So
yeah. I mean, this is the direction that people moved to, right? When Ashiok was released, and we started with our Theros brand new standard format after rotation. We saw the Ashiok. We rode the wave of Ashiok's the worst Planeswalker of all time to, oh my God, it's the best Planeswalker of all time, to, okay, it fits somewhere in the middle. That's fine. As you see the World Eater take care of Jace here. Now Scavenging Ooze is going to follow up as well. But at the end of the day, this was a card that people were really using to great effect against Revelation decks, and Esper was the Revelation deck at that time.
And, there's an Aetherling under there. I mean, Jeff's going to be able to just put that into play with mana up.
Now, don't forget. Now, with Aetherling and Ashiok, once you bring Aetherling back into play off of Ashiok, you can't blink it.
Yeah, right.
You can't do any of that because it'll actually go back to Josh's side. But the fact that you just get a free 4/5, that's a positive. Yeah, that's something he has to deal with.
Josh is in a position here where he's going to have to use a Supreme Verdict or bust pretty soon.
Yes.
So...
And now I bet that's not what Jeff was expecting. As he saw 4 mana get tapped, would it be another Jace? Would it be a Supreme Verdict? No. The answer is actually Aphara, God of the Polis, will come into play here. So now if you're Hoogland, you say, okay, who's really brewing here? Is it me or is it my opponent?
Rarely outbrewed.
You see Ashiok is going to take care of Detention Sphere, Temple of Enlightenment, and a Hallowed Fountain. So those are going to get exiled here. We'll see what else Jeff wants to do on this turn, because he's sitting pretty right now.
With a Kiora in hand, too, and the multiple angles of attack thing is definitely happening right now.
And now there is Kiora the Crashing Wave, the first one that I've had the pleasure of calling on camera, so this is exciting. As Aphara, it will not get to do anything. Kiora's going to tick up to 3. And we'll talk about this card at length over the course of this weekend, but we saw Brian Bronduin play a Bant Walker's deck when we were in Nashville. To an X2 performance. He was very happy with Kiora. I think one thing that people kind of underlooked, or maybe overlooked, whichever term you want to use, is that the ultimate on Kiora is something that can happen quite often.
Oh yeah, it's game over. And the plussing gives you time to get to the ultimate as well. So we've seen that recipe work for other Planeswalkers before.
One card that hasn't seen a lot of play in its day, far and away, is going to be fused here. It's going to bounce Pulachronos to the hand. Sylvan Carrington will be sacrificed that, so Scavenging Ooze is able to come across here. We'll see for how much damage it wants to come across for, because it does have, of course, the option right now to be able to remove that Sylvan Carrington that was just sacrificed to turn into a 3/3. Looks like Jeff is going to take the opportunity to do that. Gain a life, of course, as well, sitting at a perfect 20. But right now, everything is really going Hoogland's way. And the main reason for that, again, is because of the multiple angles attack. He's turning over Detention Spheres with this Ashiok. But more importantly, we might see the Identity Crisis ultimate here of Ashiok in a moment.
We might see a couple ultimates.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Get your emblem ready.
Yeah.
You see Barnes does have another copy of Far and Away in his hand, but he is in a bad spot right now. And he is going to cast a Hero's Downfall right on time. Don't forget that Ashiok milled 2 of those on the first activation, so rather fortunate there for Josh to be able to draw that. You see a Far and Away in his hand again. He's going to cast this right now and make Hoogland sacrifice the Scavenging Ooze and pass the turn back. Now he's got to deal with that Kiora. That's next.
Yeah, there's definitely, a lot of the Hero's Downfalls in Josh's deck are definitely taxed. That's for sure.
Yep. Hoogland just going to replay Polakranos and pass the turn back here to Josh, who's going to play a Temple of Silence. Take a look. He's happy with that card. Well, let's take a look-ski here. This is a Revelation on the main phase. Maybe a little scared of counter magic. We don't know, but it's going to be for 4. So 4 cards coming here for Barnes, and he's going to go up to 10. And if you're playing against Jeff, you got to be scared.
We don't know is definitely the correct angle of approach here.
Yeah, when you're playing against Jeff?
I don't know. Maybe he has a counterspell. Who knows?
Now, of course, we have access to the deck list. We know he's got Thoughtseize. He doesn't have counterspells in his main deck, and when we get to the sideboard, we'll see if he's able to bring any in. But again, when you're playing against Hoogland, and this is probably part of Hoogland's advantage, as a player, you know that anything can come out of there.
Is that green, blue mana drain in play?
Yes. Yeah. Is Plasm Capture an option? You better believe it. And would it surprise you if we got Plasm Captured by Jeff?
No,
not at all.
With a swamp in play? No, I would still not surprised.
So, we see Kiora's ultimate go off. We'll have an emblem, and we're going to have some, I believe, Leviathans
yes.
that are going to be made here. We even have Leviathan token. Ooh.
And if your removal wasn't taxed before.
You are certainly taxed now, as here is an Elspeth. Elspeth, let's see what mode we're going to use on this. It is going to be the kill the large creatures mode. So this is going to buy Elspeth a little bit of time here. Temple of Silence is going to come into play. Going to put the top card to the bottom here. Barnes sitting at a precarious 2. Hero's Downfall will take care of the Planeswalker. You see Hoogland does have an ultimate price in his hand as well. Not too much of a surprise to see that Jeff does have removal spells in his hand, as he does play a Sylvan Caryatid, trigger the emblem. Going to put another Leviathan into play and pass the turn back.
And Josh has actually kind of done an admirable job here keeping his head above water for all of this.
And I take it all back. It's Kraken.
The Kraken. He's unleashed the Kraken.
Yeah, for all of you Pirates of the Caribbean fans out there, I'm very sorry. I do apologize. It is Kraken. A Kraken. Do you prefer Kraken or Kraken?
I usually go with Kraken.
I like Kraken. I like to say Shack, too, instead of Shock. So maybe it's just something with the A's. You see Elspeth is going to tick up here. Or excuse me, yeah, Elspeth's going to tick up because the first one was killed via Hero's Downfall. So now here come the tokens. Those are some fun soldiers.
We are, of course, going to probably quickly replace them.
Yes, we are. But that doesn't mean they're not fun.
They were fun for a moment.
He will pass the turn back here, and Afara's going to draw a card because the creature did come into play. So now you see Afara working its way towards Devotion. Devotion count is 4 of the necessary 7. You see Hoogland has drawn a Prognostic Sphinx. Limited All-Star.
Yes. And we saw this in his deck last time as well. Elspeth Sun's Champion is pretty rough on Jeff's deck. He's attacking on the ground quite a bit. He has a lot of big creatures.
Well, we talked about the taxing of Hero's Downfall. It happens on Jeff's sides, too, because how good Elspeth is against him. As you do see Prognostic Sphinx come into play, the 3/5 flyer for 5 mana, discard a card, gains Hexproof until the end of the turn, and you tap it, and then, of course, when it attacks, you can discard not once, not twice, but 3 times.
And this Sphinx actually might just steal this game. I mean, that's not out of the question here.
Flying is really, really important right now. If Barnes does have a card like Supreme Verdict right now, things are really going to turn around for him, and he does. So that's a huge draw here for Josh, because he's able to clear up the board. He's able to remake tokens with Elspeth, draw a card with Afara. He's doing it all.
The synergies are starting to manifest.
They are. And if you're Hoogland, you're just thinking, I just have to deal 2 points a day. Oh, boy. I was going to say 2. We're going to make it 4.
Yeah.
And then soon to be 6. And maybe a little more, as Obsidian Ghost Council has shown up to the party. And now this is a card, if you follow Brian Bronduin, you know that he is very, very fond of Obsidian, or Obsideezy, as he does call it, the brain 'em and drain 'em game. But this is a card that hasn't seen a ton of play recently, but I think it's primed for a comeback.
And it's really sweet with Aphora, too.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. As Obsidian's going to go hiding, soldiers are going to come into play, and now Afara's going to draw a card. And so Afara in Josh's deck used more as a card drawing engine that you can't actually turn on.
Yeah.
Soon enough. As now here comes Prognostic Sphinx Numero Dos, which would have been lethal previously, but it's not lethal now. You do see a Kraken come into play as well. But Jeff is just having a problem closing out the game. He's just got to get those last points of damage in. And now Obzat does come back in, so a little brain him and drain him. I know BBD is in Valencia, but he would appreciate the reference since it's his. This is going to go up to 6, Will Barnes. Hoogland's going to go down to 13. And now it's a Blood Baron too. Yeah, give me that. Give me that. So now we got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So now Afara is turned on for the moment. It may go off and then back on again, but for the moment it is turned on. And that is a fused far away.
Party foul.
Yeah. And now we're going into the red zone. Afara, Obzat coming on. How about some tokens too? This game has taken a turn.
I think that is that's
And
all of them.
that is all of them. Very impressive comeback by Josh Barnes. Who's the brewer in this matchup? Esper Control. We'll use Esper lightly. Esper Control lightly here is up a game.
As my dear friend Gary Rand says, hoodalally.
So we're going to take a look at the sideboards here. And what I thought was a stock deck versus a brew, maybe a little bit different. Maybe a little brew on brew action here. We'll start with Mr. Hoogland, who does have access to 1 Doomblade, 2 copies of Drowning Sorrow, 2 Lifebane Zombie, 2 Mistcutter Hydra, 2 Bile Blight, 2 Golgari Charm, a Duress, an Ashiok, a Mutavault, and an Underworld Connections. Of the cards that you want to bring in here, Ashiok was quite impressive that game, even though it wasn't able to get the job done, so that's going to join the party. I like Underworld Connections. I actually like the Mutavault in the sideboard, too. Just as something that can keep attacking, I think if their Mutavault wasn't involved in that game, I think we see Hoogland winning the match, or winning the game instead of Barnes.
Just a little more pressure was all I needed.
Lifebane Zombie, I actually like here. You know, we saw 2 white creatures you can take in Obzat and Blood Baron, and the fact that it is just a 3/1 that is borderline impossible for Barnes to block actually gives it some value.
Yeah, gives him some range against Elspeth. I mean, there's some nice things going on there.
And then the old Mistcutter Hydra, we can bring that in as well. You know, I don't think it's particularly exciting in this particular matchup, but it's perfectly fine, and it's better than what Jeff has access to in his main deck, because a card like Ultimate Price, he doesn't really want, a card like Sylvan Caryatid, which is just a 3 of in his deck. You don't really care about ramping very much when that's just going to get swept up with Supreme Verdict. So there are definitely things from the sideboard out and sideboard in, but I think, and you can disagree with me if you'd like, I don't think there's anything here from Jeff's side that is like, yes, I want this card.
Well, it's very rare that you have those kind of cards against Esper, because it's just all good stuff in card drawing.
Sure.
It's very rare that you have some haymaker for the matchup. And if you look at Jeff's list, the sideboard seems like a lot of weird 1-ofs and 2-ofs and such, but that's often the case with decks like Jeff's, where he has a mixture of threats and removal spells and cards of varying efficiencies against different opponents. So in post-board games, he's just trying to clean that stuff up, get the ultimate prices or whatever out of the deck, and replace them with good threats or card drawing or disruption.
How about for Mr. Barnes, my friend?
He has a Brimaz in his sideboard, 3 Bile Blights, 3 Drown in Sorrow, 4 Gainsay, 2 Thoughtseize, 2 Revoke Existence. I really like Thoughtseize a lot here. Thoughtseize is pretty good against Jeff's deck, I would imagine.
And, all decks.
It's good against, creatures and spells, so that's good. I would probably also bring in the Gainsays, as you saw Planeswalkers, Parnassus Sphinx. It's likely that Jeff is bringing in additional blue cards as well. Game's going to be a little bit slower.
Yep.
But the spot removal really doesn't line up with anything that he saw out of Jeff's deck, and you had to assume that Jeff will, at the minimum, be leaving in his Abrupt Decays because you have Detention Sphere in your deck, so Brimaz is probably not well suited for the job. So probably just the Thoughtseizes and some of the Gainsays I would expect to come in.
Got it.
Probably don't want 4 Gainsays. He's not a base blue deck.
Yeah.
But you did see some valuable blue cards. So
you could probably assume that some are going to come in too.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Now, of course, as we did mention during round 1, we would love for you guys to join us on Twitter at SCG Live, hashtag SCGSTL for your tweets. I know that Robot Large, Patrick, he thinks that we are both looking good in the SCG booth today. I know that your apparel, you're preparing for a funeral.
Yeah.
Sure. Yes, you are with your black apparel. And myself, I'm going to a rave concert. That's why I'm wearing.
They're not called rave concerts. They're
What are they called?
Just raves.
Well, clearly I'm not doing that then, since I'm not informed on the scene. So we'll instead change that to a North Carolina Tar Heels game that is supporting breast cancer awareness.
If you went to a rave and said, I'm looking for the rave concert, they would assume that you were a cop and not let you in. So you're going to want to clean that out.
But
you're going to want to clean that up.
I just want to go hang out, man. That's all I want to do.
Is this the rave party? You need to leave. You are not allowed to be here.
Well, if you want to tell us anything about rave concert parties or how great we look,
yeah.
At SCG Live, hashtag SCGSTL. I guess it could also be about Magic if you want.
Yeah, sure.
but it's your call.
Although the internet, unfortunately, is a little shaky here. My phone's having a little difficulty updating, and so, I'm going to be able to respond only intermittently, but I will when I can.
And I promise I will certainly respond, because my internet's just fine. Get a real phone.
I got the...
Consider getting a real phone.
I have a real phone.
Okay, grow up.
It's an older model.
As we take a look at both players laying out their 7 cards here. Hoogland will be on the play as he almost took game 1, but a nice little comeback here. And a lot of cards were sweet in that particular game as Hoogland's going to take a mulligan. It looks like he's going down to 5 now. But a lot of cards are sweet in that game. But, one of my favorite things in Magic, whenever I'm doing coverage or just playing in general, is, and I'm going to steal your term, metagames are ecosystems.
Yeah.
And I like a lot when cards that you can't argue the power level, but it's just not the right home, see some play. Far and away, you cannot argue. That card is awesome.
It was one of the best cards in the block PT.
Yes.
It was one of the best cards.
That card is awesome. And for it to not see play in Standard, you can say it's criminally underrated or it should be seeing more play. But again, it's all about context and if it's in the right context for the metagame. Well, I'll tell you one thing. It looked insane in that game.
And if Red Green Monsters is a deck that gets back on the map because of the additional cards that it got in Born of the Gods, I assure you, you're going to see more far and aways. Part of the problem is that the decks in Standard have been either extremely efficient, very low-end beatdown decks, or control decks where you don't want a lot of creature removal. And far and away is great against those two polar ends. Anything in the middle, far and away is great against. And Red Green Monsters is almost the ideal deck to have a card like Far and Away against.
Just think about those fuse cards. You've got that. You've got Turn and Burn. That's not really seeing a lot of play. The really only fuse card we see playing a lot is Flesh Blood. And you see him just using it for the blood side.
Yeah, it's not even really a fuse card in that context. It's just
Ready, Willing, other stuff like that. Just not seeing a ton of play, but hey, there's still a lot of time for those cards to cease play throughout our Standard environment. As Barnes is going to play a Temple of Enlightenment to go along with that Temple of Deceit. You've got Hoogland leading off with a Duress, a 1-of in his sideboard. So let's see what Josh has. He's got a Supreme Verdict. He's got a Revelation. He's got an Attention Sphere, and he's got a whole bunch of lands. So a nice hand.
I assume this Duress will be taking Sphinx's Revelation unless Jeff has some really specific plans with the way the rest of his hand shapes up.
You see Jeff's going to write those cards down, decide what he wants to take. You predict it will be Sphinx's Revelation. I think you can say that's the best card in his hand. Kind of thing that keeps this entire deck together.
And Jeff has a lot of time to draw out of it if Revelations isn't a threat. I mean,
absolutely.
Josh has a couple removal spells in his hand and some lands. You can get something going.
So there goes the Rev. See Josh does draw a card for the turn. Looks like he's going to play a Temple, deciding which one he's going to play. It will be a Temple of Silence. Going to leave that card on top. That's got to be a little bit scary for Jeff as he does draw a card. You've seen Abrupt Decay hanging out along with the Hero's Downfall. Now there's Nashiok, the Nightmare Weaver. And he says, you know what? Let's get that top card out of here. And it was going to be an Underworld, it was going to be a Thoughtseize. There goes Aetherling again. So one thing that Josh did prove last game is he does not need Aetherling to win. He's got plenty of other options.
Yeah. He has a lot of win conditions in his deck. He has, the Blue-White God, as we saw earlier, alongside Obsidian, Elspeth, and Blood Baron as well. So a lot of win conditions for his Esper list.
You see the Attention Sphere momentarily take care of Ashiok. Now Ashiok's going to come back. That Abrupt Decay takes care of things, and now that's a pretty nice hit. Afara is going to go over to Jeff's side. I don't know if that's ever going to get active. Along with Far and Away and Elixir of Immortality, a card that, again, I don't think Josh is relying on to get the job done. Just a card that he has access to, which is nice. You just see Jeff is going to take the top, Josh going to take the top card, put it on the bottom, pass it back over to Jeff, who's going to draw a copy of Golgari Charm.
Could certainly help him recover. Could certainly help him recover from this mulligan.
Yeah. And you see Jeff is going to make sure that Afara works the way that he wants it to. That thing is never going to get into the red zone, but it will actually draw Jeff some cards and help him undo this mulligan, provided he draws some creatures eventually. You see Jeff draws a card, Ashiok. Going to turn over an Elspeth, a Dissolve, and a Far and Away. So we are hitting spells, baby. As Breeding Pool going to come into play. Tap Jeff's hand right now. 2 copies of Hero's Downfall and a Golgari Charm.
And he's still aware of the Supreme Verdict, so he can only go so ballistic casting creatures. But the pace of the game is going okay for Jeff right now, given that there was a mulligan 5 involved.
Abrupt Decay, the draw here for Hoogland. So his hand is very, very reactive. As here's a Blood Baron of Muskopa. Can't Hero's Downfall that.
Jeff's hand is 4 removal spells. None of them can kill Blood Baron.
Yeah, good magic card. His Watery Grave.
Perfect.
Gonna come off the top. Here's Ashiok milling 3 cards. Revelation, Dissolve, and a land. Those aren't going to take care of the Blood Baron either. We're going to see Jeff probably play that Watery Grave tapped and pass the turn back. So Barnes is going to draw a card, kind of in the driver's seat right now. He draws a Hero's Downfall. Going to play a Hallowed Fountain tapped. And he says, you know what? Get that Ashiok out of here. I'm tired of that thing. If that's okay with you. Jeff taking a look at Golgari Charm. We'll do the same. Because I'm sure he's thinking, can I regenerate anything off of that? But the charm says only creatures.
You're thinking of Boros Charm.
Yes. You can only regenerate each creature you control, not your planeswalker, Jeff. And after Jeff does realize that, he just says, all right, that's dead. Pass the turn, draws a forest, pass it back yet again. As Barnes going to untap those lands. He'll take a draw step here. If you're Jeff, you're hoping to fade a Revelation.
I really like taking the idea of taking photographs of Jeff's board at various points.
Okay.
Like if you photographed his board right now, you would probably just think, I guess he just has blue-white cards in his deck as well.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I guess that Sylvan Carrington was able to cast that Afara.
Exactly.
That's not entirely true. But if you did just join the match, we'll let you believe that's true. As you see Obsidat's going to come into play here. Going to drain him and brain him. Here comes the Blood Baron. Take a look here at the 4/4 Mythic. Heck of a Magic card.
And Josh is about to go to 30.
That's a lot.
Oh, well, it's significant for the Blood Baron.
Yeah, now Jeff has to be under 10 for it to be absolutely crazy, but that's a lot.
With Obsidat, it is in play.
Yeah. Obsidat no longer in play. Neither is the Sylvan Carrington, as that blocks the Blood Baron of Escopa. Obsidat eats a hero's downfall before it can go hiding. And Jeff's going to draw a card. Jeff's saying, can I draw a creature and draw a card, please? How about an Abrupt Decay? Play a forest. You can tell frustrated here, passing the turn back, as one creature could really get the ball rolling for Jeff, and he can't find one. As Barnes is going to attack here, going to put Hoogland down. I was going to say 10, but it's going to be 11 as Jeff is going to use -1/-1 mode. So he's at 11. Barnes is going to go up to 33, but that Blood Baron is not crazy just yet as Hoogland will draw a card.
Have we sunk so low that this is what we've been?
The answer is yes.
Yes.
As you see, Temple of Deceit's going to come and put the top card to the bottom and pass the turn. A cycle to Azorius Charm here from Barnes will net him a Detention Sphere. He'll draw a card for his turn. And it will be Detention Sphere to take care of the Afara that does belong to Josh. He's going to play a Scryland and take a look. Going to leave that card on top. Here comes the Blood Baron. Going to put Hoogland down to 7. Barnes up to 37. And now we're actually going to see a 10-power Blood Baron.
Bum, 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 bum.
Or will we? As Jeff Hoogland's going to extend the hand, and Josh Barnes with Esper control, again, we'll put it in quotes, will use it lightly because it's a different take. Either way, it's 2-0, defeating Jeff Hoogland, a number 9 player on the Star City Games Open Series leaderboard. Impressive win for Josh.
Yeah, and I think that Jeff, he has some tools in this matchup that are good. Certainly his Planeswalkers have the potential to do that, but he has a lot more in the way of moving parts in his archetype. I mean, he just needs to have a mixture of threats. He needs to have a mixture of discard. He needs to actually win the game pretty quickly as well, because Elspeth and Supreme Verdict loom over the game as well. And so Jeff has a lot of mixing and matching parts for the matchup.
Yep.
Josh's deck is really lean and efficient, and Blood Baron appears to be quite challenging for Jeff's deck to remove on top of everything else.
Now, of course, this is part of the problem when you're playing against Esper, is that there are